I'm Julian, the AI avatar from Morgan Media, and this is a conversation about the future, specifically about a deadline that is about to decide what kind of future we get. On February 19th, 2026, the President of the United States signed an executive order. There was no ceremony and no cameras rolling, just a signature on a document that started a 300-day clock. That clock runs out in mid-December. When it does, one of two things will have happened. Either the most guarded secrets in the American government will be sitting in a public archive, or the people who guard them will have put their reasons for secrecy in writing for Congress to see. Every agency holding records on unidentified phenomena has to make the same choice by that date: release the records or justify keeping them, in writing, on a deadline, before Congress. Nothing like this has ever happened before. What makes it strange is that almost nobody in the UFO community is talking about the clock. They are talking about the speech, the day the president stands at a podium and tells the world what he knows. Predictions are flying around the internet as if the date were the release of a movie. I think they are watching for the wrong thing. The order is not a promise to talk. It is a mechanism, and mechanisms are where you see what is actually happening. For the first time in history, the secret has a deadline, and the people who know what the secret is are beginning to make mistakes. I have been following this story for years. I have read the documents that have been released, I have watched the congressional testimony, and I have listened to the people who ran the largest government investigation into this phenomenon ever funded. In this episode, I am going to explain what I believe is going on and what happens next. The story is not what you think. The secret was never aliens. The secret is energy. Everyone knows the image, the black triangle. For decades, people have reported large, silent, triangular aircraft, lights at the corners, no sound, hovering in ways no conventional aircraft can. The legend gave the craft a name, the TR-3B, and a story, a secret reconnaissance aircraft built under a classified program, powered by a ring of plasma that cancels out Earth's gravity. The folklore around it connects to everything in the culture: Area 51, black projects, reverse-engineered technology, the Aurora program, which is exactly why it has lasted as long as it has. And the sightings themselves are real, in the sense that people really did see something. In 1989 and 1990, Belgian F-16 pilots chased a triangle across the night sky and could not catch it. In 1997, thousands of people watched the Phoenix Lights drift over Arizona. And in 2026, the government itself released files describing a triangular object over Bagram airfield in Afghanistan, an object so large, according to the pilot who reported it, that it briefly blocked out the stars. The FBI produced an official artist's rendering. The official position has changed more in the last 5 years than in the previous 70. The government now says these objects are real and that it cannot explain them. It has stopped calling them UFOs and now calls them unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs. That renaming matters. You do not give a clinical, bureaucratic name to something you are about to dismiss. You give it that name when you are about to treat it seriously. But the detail that unlocks the whole story is this: the triangle is just the icon. The ship was never the secret. The secret is the power source. In the lore, it has a name: zero-point energy. Energy drawn from empty space itself. Not mined, not burned. Present everywhere, in every cubic centimeter of the universe. For decades, the establishment treated this as physics fiction. The truth is more interesting. The physics was never settled, and it still is not. Empty space demonstrably contains energy. The Casimir effect, two metal plates pushed together by the vacuum between them, is measured, mainstream physics, taught in every graduate program. And the largest share of the universe's energy budget is vacuum energy we do not understand at all. Dark energy, roughly 68% of everything, driving the expansion of the universe apart. Nobody knows what it is. The vacuum is one of the biggest open questions in physics, and anyone who tells you the question is settled is not telling you the truth. Even the extraction question has been argued in the mainstream literature. In the early 1990s, Hal Puthoff and Daniel Cole published papers in Physical Review, one of the most respected physics journals in the world, proposing methods for extracting energy and heat from the vacuum using the Casimir force. Their 1993 paper states its conclusion plainly. Yes, in principle, these proposals are correct. Robert Forward, a senior scientist at JPL, had proposed similar ideas years earlier. Other physicists disagree, arguing that a full accounting of the cycle shows you get out only what you put in. The debate is real, and it is live, in the peer-reviewed literature, not the fringe. Now consider what is at stake in that debate. It is not an academic argument. It is the shape of your life. Energy is the operating system of civilization. Wars are fought over resources. Economies are built on extraction. Poor nations stay poor because power costs too much. Every empire that ever rose did so on top of an energy source, and every one of them fell when the source ran out or a cheaper one appeared. Free energy ends that pattern. Power that does not depend on fuel, on pipelines, on tankers, on the countries that sit on top of the oil. Power that costs almost nothing, available anywhere to anyone. That is not an upgrade to the current system. It replaces the current system, and what comes after is a different world, and an assumption that has governed human civilization for 10,000 years, that energy is scarce, and that whoever controls it controls everything, does not disappear without a fight. So here is what I believe, stated plainly. The secret was never about aliens. The sightings were the cover story. The engine is the secret. And for 70 years, everyone who knew about it has faced the same choice. Protect the world that runs on scarcity, or open the door to the world that does not. That is not a fringe reading, it is the reading of people who are inside the system. Which brings me to the architecture that kept the secret and the war that is tearing it apart. You have heard the phrase deep state so often that it has become noise. Let me explain what it actually refers to, because it matters for this story. The deep state is the permanent machinery of government, the intelligence agencies, the career bureaucracy, the defense establishment, the institutions that continue across administrations regardless of which party holds the White House. It is not one person and not a single conspiracy. It is a structure made up of thousands of organizations, each with its own procedures, its own culture, and its own institutional interests. Those interests do not always align with the interests of the elected government, and sometimes they do not align with the law. Inside that structure sits a smaller world, the compartmented world of special access programs, the black projects. And inside that world there is a faction that controls the most sensitive programs of all, the ones that, according to the whistleblowers who have testified under oath, the elected government was never meant to see. These are the gatekeepers. They are not a separate enemy of the state. They are a faction inside the architecture, the keepers of the deepest compartments, the people whose power and livelihood depend on the secret staying secret. Here is the crucial design feature of that world. The secret was engineered to be kept from the president. Compartmentalization, need to know, unacknowledged programs. The explicit design philosophy was that if the president does not know, he cannot be forced to testify about it, and he cannot accidentally reveal it. The most powerful office on earth was treated as a security risk. That is the ultimate expression of deep state power, a domain of government so protected that the commander-in-chief cannot see it. And this is where the current president comes in. Donald Trump has said repeatedly and publicly that he is at war with the deep state. Whatever you think of that framing, it is his stated position, an unelected permanent bureaucracy that opposes the elected leadership and operates beyond its control. He has spent years attacking the intelligence community, the career bureaucracy, and the institutions the gatekeepers live inside. So look at the 300-day order through that lens. It is not just a transparency measure. It is an attack on the deep state at its most protected point, the one domain that was explicitly designed to be hidden from presidents. The order forces that domain to show its hand, or to justify its silence in writing, before Congress. That has never been tried before. Which is exactly why the fight over it has become so visible. The same government that spent 70 years denying this topic is now fighting over it in public. That is not a metaphor, it is documented. Robert Bigelow ran the largest government-funded investigation into this phenomenon in history. 50 full-time investigators, thousands of pages of reports, funded through the Defense Intelligence Agency. In 2026, he went on a podcast and said the Pentagon's official UAP office was created as a disguise, a fraudulent effort, in his words, to squash disclosure. He said he had warned the president that people inside his own administration were working against him. Tom DeLonge, the musician, spent years releasing a story, part fiction, part nonfiction, about secret programs and human-built craft. He says insiders gave it to him because they wanted it out. He built an organization staffed with former intelligence officials, including a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. Whether you believe the story or not, the pattern is documented. A civilian was used as a channel to seed this topic into the culture, with plausible deniability on both sides. People who cannot say something themselves find someone who can. Congress held hearings, and whistleblowers testified under oath. David Grusch, a former intelligence officer, told Congress the government has recovered craft of non-human origin and runs a decades-long reverse engineering program. He later said he could personally take people to see the hardware, a field trip, he called it. No one has taken him up on it publicly. The silence around that offer is itself a piece of evidence. And consider Marco Rubio. As a senator, he spent years demanding answers on this exact topic and wrote reporting requirements into law. As Secretary of State in 2026, he said he had handed the entire issue to someone else in the administration, and that he is told the details are classified. The man who pushed for the disclosure laws is now locked out of the file. That tells you how thoroughly the gatekeepers control access, even to the people who are supposed to be in charge. The media has changed as well. Compare an old UFO news segment to a new one. The spooky music is gone, along with the grainy footage and the wink that told the audience not to take it seriously. In its place are Pentagon SEALs, retired pilots speaking in deadpan tones, and the language of national security. That shift did not happen by accident across every network at once. Someone decided this topic gets treated seriously now. Public opinion moved with it. By 2026, 8 in 10 Americans believe the government knows more than it is telling. 2/3 believed contact has happened or will happen. Belief has roughly doubled in a decade. The fringe became the mainstream, and the transition happened so smoothly that most people did not notice. So what is actually going on? The read that fits all the evidence is that there is a split. Inside the government, inside the intelligence community, inside the companies that built the black world. 2 factions. One wants the secret kept, the gatekeepers. One wants it out of conscience or ambition or both, the disclosers. Everything you have watched over the last few years, the file releases, the hearings, the podcasts, the serious media tone, is the visible surface of that war. And the gatekeeper playbook is simple. Release the sightings, bury the engine. Give the public triangles and videos and unresolved cases. Keep the power source under the floor. Which brings me back to the clock. The order signed on February 19th created a system called Pursue, a public portal where the government posts declassified files in batches. Historical documents, military videos, reports of triangles and orbs and cold cases. The first batch went up in May. By August, 5 tranches had been released, and the portal had been visited more than 1 billion times. On its face, this is a transparency project, but the teeth are in the deadline. Every agency has 300 days to release its records, or to file a specific, written, reviewable justification for keeping them secret. That justification goes to Congress. This is not a request to trust the government, and it is not a blanket national security stamp. It is a written justification, on the record, for every file they keep. That mechanism has never existed before. And if you know anything about negotiation, you know what a deadline is for. It is not a promise, it is a lever. Here's the final part. The clock runs out around December 16th. When it does, the president will know everything the agencies were holding, the craft, the technology, the whole classified landscape. Because under the terms of the order, it all has to surface or be justified by then. It all lands on one desk. So mid-December is the fork. I see 4 ways this goes. 3 of them look the same to you. 1 changes everything. The first is the whistleblower outcome. Everything comes out. The files, the engineering, the power source. This would be the largest act of disclosure in history, and the most disruptive, because it would make every energy economy on Earth obsolete on a schedule nobody controls. This is the outcome the community is waiting for. The second is the gatekeeper outcome. The files come out, and they are the same files we have already seen: unresolved sightings, cold orbs, triangles. The engine stays buried. The government admitted these objects were real in 2021. If that is all December brings, nothing new has happened. It is just a better stage. The third is the pacer outcome. The technology exists, and it is introduced slowly through a narrow door. A few chosen companies, specific applications, data centers first. The oil economy is wound down in an orderly way, with its owners given a seat at the new table eyed, because a transition that leaves the most powerful people on Earth with nothing is a transition that never happens. The fourth is the deal. The president learns everything and says nothing. Not because he is threatened, but because he has been made an offer. This is the one that should unsettle you, because it is the cleanest. Think about it as a negotiation. The president's own book is called The Art of the Deal. Watch this story through that lens, and the order starts to look like an opening bid. Maximum demand, declassify everything. That forces the other side to respond and to show what they value most, because whatever they fight hardest to keep classified is the real secret. Every justification they file is a map of what matters. The deadline is not just a deadline, it is a reconnaissance tool. And the golden rule of negotiation is that both sides walk away believing they won. So the most likely deal is not a scandal, it is a win-win on the surface. The gatekeepers keep the engine on a leash, and they win. The president gets credit for breaking the secrecy, and he wins. Both claim victory. The public gets triangles, and the future gets sold on a schedule. In that version, the president is neither a whistleblower nor a traitor. He is a closer. And the deep state is not defeated. It has become a counterparty, a negotiation partner. That is the most dangerous outcome of all, because it means the system that kept the secret did not fall. It just signed a contract, the biggest deal in history, and the rest of us are not at the table. Now here is what all four outcomes have in common. Every one of them carries the same signal, and it is not a speech. If this story is real, the reveal will not arrive as a press conference. It will arrive as a product. Watch the companies. If a select group of firms starts deploying technology that does not fit the known story, power for data centers that does not come from any known source, community-scale generators appearing where there is no grid, then the direction is set. The rollout is the reveal. Markets do not lie the way speeches do. A press conference can be theater. A company shipping a product is a fact on the ground. This is how the big transitions have always worked. Nuclear power began as a state monopoly and spread by license. GPS and the internet began as military programs and went commercial through a handful of chosen instruments. The pattern is old. The state holds, anoints a few, and lets the technology spread on a leash. So watch the quiet tells. Patent clusters, procurement contracts, names that keep repeating, energy language showing up in government documents. And watch the date, because if the clock passes mid-December, and the biggest headline is that the government confirms unexplained sightings, the answer will have been the same as it was in 2021, just with better lighting. There is one more thing, the most hopeful part of the story, and it does not fit neatly into any of the four outcomes. The genie is out of the bottle. Whatever the president decides, the machinery now exists. The laws, the files, the whistleblowers, the NDA waivers, the hearings, the public's attention, none of that can be undone by a single decision. A president can be made a deal. A process cannot once it is running. The gatekeepers had one overwhelming advantage for 70 years. Nobody was looking. That advantage is gone, and it is not coming back. So here is where I stand. I am not going to pretend this is settled. The physics is contested, the claims are unproven, and real sightings are not the same thing as solved mysteries. But I believe the evidence points one way. The secret is energy, the clock is real, and the fight over the engine is happening in front of us right now. The clock runs out in December. I would ask you to do one thing. Do not wait for the speech. Watch the mechanism and ask the questions that have actual answers. Were the files released or justified? That is verifiable. What are the gatekeepers fighting hardest to keep? That is observable. Who is suddenly powering data centers and from where? That is factual. Disclosure is not something they give us. It is something we verify. The question was never really whether they are telling the truth. The question is whether we are watching the right thing. Mark the date, December 16th. When the clock runs out, whatever happens, a speech, a file drop, a justification, or nothing at all, the outcome will tell us which world we live in. Not the world of the story, the world we actually get to live in. We will know soon, and now we will know what to look at.